Mainstay of the Positive Identity podcast series with Ron Bush, my partner in crime. It is February 1st, 2021, the first day of Black History Month, and this is a podcast for creating positive race relations. And today we'll be talking about Black History Month and what it means to all of us. Ron, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's the first day of Black History Month. I was paying attention to oppression today. You know, how the Black man's being held down. In particular, within our own organization. Ladies and gentlemen, within the Positive Identity organization, we have
a scandal already. Oh my god,
we have a scandal already. Stephen has a Positive Identity t-shirt. I do not. Yeah.
So the swag's in the mail, Ron. It's going to happen at some point. You got to come my way. Ron, I thought we were friends. Why are you coming over? I have the swag for you.
He looks sharp, doesn't he, ladies and gentlemen? If you are the first to post comments, excuse me, on our YouTube page, you too will be sent a Positive Identity t-shirt.
We're just giving them away. We're here to create positive race relations. We want you to wear.
We're going to give away
the shirts.
We're going to give away one free t-shirt today, ladies and gentlemen. To the first person that messages us gets a free Positive Identity t-shirt.
Sounds good, Ron. You know what? You son of a bitch.
Now, just in case you're wondering, we have not discussed this at all before me just making that up. So there may be some delay like getting the t-shirt out the door, but just understand we stick by our word.
Yeah, I'll say this. That's, you talk about the Ron Bush 2020. Yeah. Trump had his hats. You're gonna have t-shirts. Like, some politician out there's like t-shirts. That's my thing. They're gonna get pumping out tons of t-shirts. Right. I'm with politician instead of I'm with stupid. So like that's gonna be the thing in 4 years.
I think so. But yeah, no, seriously, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for the stupid little intro there. Black History Month. How can I say this? 2021.
Take it seriously, Ron. 2020.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings. There is the hopefulness that guides my life. There is the hopefulness that guides the values and the love of country for most African Americans. There is the hopefulness of a country that is always trying to seemingly do better. But then, of course, there is the obvious climate that we're in, and, seeing how, white supremacy is moving into the House of Representatives, and how, we are struggling in the moment as a people, to rise to our better selves. So, again, the reason I do this podcast is to raise a voice of to be the voice of hopefulness, and to say, hey, listen, no matter what's going on out there, you have to be the lighthouse. There's this old saying, right? The lighthouse only does one thing: it shines, leads by example, right? And so, we just have to continue to be the lighthouse and to shine and to do our thing, and hopefully things will get better. That's the most I can say.
Yeah, this is it's an interesting Black History Month because this is obviously there's the barbed wire summer that we had for 2020 for the post George Floyd era, and there's a lot of intensity. There's an intensity of anger that spread across the United States, and it seemed like a lot of corporations and institutions started to sort of say, all right, how do we take action here? How do we get engaged? And now the black community, I think, overwhelmingly voted for Joe Biden for president, and Joe Biden is now U.S. president. So in many ways, it's interesting because from an outsider's perspective, it's like, all right, reasons to be hopefulness. People talking about how we can fight systematic pressure. Like the majority of this country, I think they found out, like, over the summer they polled them, said, this system, is rigged against black people. Like, I don't think you've ever had that poll happen before in American history. And so, like, now you see all these people sort of taking engagement, finding out ways to work with it. And, if you look around the media, where there's a real push to have black representation of people around. And of course, obviously, Kamala, I know obviously she's got a mixed background, but she's still, to many people, considered the first black female vice president. So, like, to me, there's hopefulness, and I'm always interested to hear what your thoughts are in relation to that.
Um, you know, I think that Kamala Harris has to prove herself, and not because she's a woman, but because of the policies that she's adhered to in the past when it comes to the black community. Um, just as we would have appreciated um, accountability in the last administration, I think we expect accountability in this administration. We voted for Joe Biden because Joe Biden was the most electable in this political climate. The African American community remains the conscience of this country, and African Americans over, I think, any other culture within the United States understands the dynamics of systemic racism and understands the mind of the racist, the subconscious racist, and the racist sympathizer that would vote for someone who is an open racist. And so were there somebody, I think, that collectively African Americans could have looked towards and said they would serve our purpose more, we would have voted for them as long as we felt they could have gotten elected. This election to us was an all or nothing election. My hope is because we have seen a awakening of the greater American electorate that is non-African American and non-Latino. I think that now that we have seen this awakening of this electorate to what this looks like, the benefit of Trump is Trump stripped away the veneer of what systemic hatred and discrimination looks like. He stripped it away, and now everybody sees, like in The Wizard of Oz, what it looks like behind the curtain. That's why everything we see now, in my humble opinion, just looks inauthentic, and people are looking for authenticity. Even in regards to my Republican brothers and sisters, to my conservative brothers and sisters out there, you're looking for authenticity too. And it is clear if you are taking to the streets as we are taking to the streets, then there is a problem that we're both not getting taken care of. And so I would ask you all, if you feel that you're not being served by your government and you feel it's someone else's problem, maybe actually you're the problem, and you can go ahead and start thinking about how you can join with others to ensure that we all have the same opportunity, if that's what you want, if the same opportunity is what you want. Because I question that now. And so we have an insurrectionist type movement in the country. We have this this denial of responsibility that is running rampant in our culture. We have this denial of fact and this remarkable ability to manufacture perceptions as we need them to make ourselves feel better. And that's not healthy for uh, democracy or for ourselves as individuals. So that's how I feel about that. And I think that it requires a conversation. I think it really requires people to sit down and start having some conversations. When you look at the guy with the horn, the hot guy with the horns and the cowboy outfit that was up there,
The hot guy doing all right.
yeah, come on, everybody knows he was hot. He was a little hot, crazy as fuck when he was hot. You know what I'm saying? I've dated at least 15. I've been dating at least 15 guys like that. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. Everybody knows him. You know what I mean? But listen, when you listen, here's a guy. He's a perfect example. First of all, diagnosed with mental health issues. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, he's a vet. Uh, he has struggled with different issues in his life. So I'm sure he hasn't had an easy life. So it's really easy to look at him dressed in a Viking outfit at the Capitol, talking all this crazy shit. But guess what? How did he get there? He got there through a failed system. And so, as an African American, if I have one iota of compassion, I can easily look at that and say, I get it. So, how do we help him too?
It's interesting though. This has been a very interesting past week in regards to the news alarm. So obviously, I'm sure you pay attention to this whole GameStop Wall Street story and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. It's part of
if
it.
you
It's
hop
part of it.
online, what?
It's part of it. It's all GameStop is all part of this. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you hop online, it was really interesting because there's like cross racial, cross political approach where a lot of people were excited for what was happening in ways and like showing like an energy towards this economic populism that sort of just jumps across the board that we probably haven't seen in years. That was one of the few rare situations where America was coming together, of all different backgrounds, saying let it rip, let's let her rip to obviously Wall Street and stuff like that. And it's interesting because you there's this one idea. We talk about how do we bring people of race together and stuff like that, and Black History Month was sort of this invention to sort of say, all right, we'll help advance Black people by exposing white people to positive Black figures and stuff like that, and conversely, we'll expose Black people to positive Black figures so they can obviously be inspired by and emulate. And the thing is that the question is who we're being inspired by. Tying it back to this economic thing, is that right now, a lot of the figures that we have right now, just haven't been able to get it to work on both sides. You'll see Democrats and Republicans, and well, let's face it, even kind of the left and the right, they have a lot of complaints about their political leaders and about even many of their cultural leaders. And that's where a lot of this sort of cross-populist economic approach came, because people at the end of the day, they just want to be able to not worry about dying economically or like getting flattened and like being healed and healthy. And a lot of these things that are pushing us apart is that we don't have leadership right now to break a lot of these economic systems that are strangling people of all different backgrounds.
Well, here's the thing. I was thinking about this earlier today as I was writing. Racism in this country is killing us. Like an addiction, it really is. Um, it's because of racism that we have gerrymandered districts. It's because of gerrymandered districts that we have these politicians that are ideological purists, because you can't unseat them. You're always going to have these ideological purists coming out of these districts, and they're ignoramuses and unqualified to lead. But these are the people that racism are putting into our halls of justice, into our Congress. You see? And I mean, you have so many people in this country that are so disillusioned with the process. And that's also by design. And so it really, my hope, I guess, is that people are awakened to how important their vote actually is. My hope is that people this past election were like, oh, yeah, that's right. Voting does matter. And my hope is that we recognize how important now how important it is to vote during the midterm elections. And thirdly, and just as importantly, I hope that we can recognize that the grievances, the socioeconomic just grievances that we're hearing being espoused by these people in the QAnon crowd and by these people who are QAnon adjacent, whatever you want to call it, those are real concerns. And regardless of how crackpot they are, as people, you know, the rest of us need to understand that those beliefs go away when the stresses and the inequities are addressed. You know, there's a scene in I'm Going to Get You. I think it's I'm Going to Get You, Sucker. I think it's I'm Going to Get You, Sucker. I think it's where there's that scene where Slade comes to, he's going to put the old crew back together. And he goes to this African shop to meet up with his pro-black militant brother. And he gets there, and homeboy's married to a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman with these mixed-race kids. And he's like, wait a minute, what happened to the movement? He goes, they came with jobs. You know, but it's true. It's exactly true. If everyone was economically secure, you would be boiled down to those. You're always going to have haters. You're always going to have a racist. You're always going to have a bigot. Let's just get over it. Okay, you're always going to have that person. You're not going to have 100%. There's no time in human history where we're going to be dancing around and singing like some goddamn, Munch and Cheese cartoon. You know what I mean?
Right. There's always
just
going to be that one person in the crowd who yells "you suck" when you're playing a baseball game. Like, it's just that's how it works. It's always that one person.
It's just how it works. But that doesn't stop us from wanting to address the issues of disparity to ensure that those voices are as few as possible.
So I want to bring this back to Black History Month a little bit, because I actually think that your message of how do we include people, you've been, one thing is I really appreciate, you're consistent about it, and I think that's a really important thing, is that we have to walk people back towards each other. And so, think about Black History Month. Obviously, you're conflicted in a lot of ways. When did you first realize Black History Month was a thing? How old were you as a kid? That, like, it was, people grow up and, they have different experiences and they remember certain things in certain ways. What was your perception about Black history growing up as a young kid?
Well, Jesus, hey, Google this. When was Black History Month made a thing? Could you Google that for me?
Yeah, sure. All right. So,
because I think I was like, I'm almost, ladies and gentlemen, I'm 51 years old, and here comes, before I speak, let me just get a little calendar. Let's get a little verification going on here.
1926, apparently.
Huh?
Yeah, I think it says 19, but like, that's like the beginning. But like, when did it start to like be
when did it become a national holiday? There definitely was no national holiday in 1926.
I think 1970. The first celebration. Hold on. 1976. Black History Month was celebrated all across the country in educational institutions. Black culture.
There you go. 1976. So, in the back when Steven said that, and the reason why I asked him to look is because I was born in 1969. And so I remember Black History Month becoming a thing, even though I was young at the time. Obviously, in the African American community, my mother being Jamaican, my dad being from the South, everybody I'm getting my mind just telling me that, how many people, how it was a big deal. And listen, there's always been cynicism, there's, being the shortest month of the year, you know, um, uh, there's, there's a lot can be said, but Black History Month, mainly because our history was whitewashed in America, mainly because most high school history books do nothing short of a breathtakingly poor retelling of Black history in this country. High school books and colleges, generally speaking, don't have in the smaller communities don't have robust, truthful, unvarnished retellings of Black history, local people of their town and community that were of importance. And the same thing goes for Native and Latino. You can walk around Alabama and think that there wasn't a nigga in the world that did anything good, but you can see a Confederate statue. You can see, you look around all throughout the South and across the country. Where's the statue to the Native Americans who saved the first pilgrims before they started getting massacred? I mean, you know what I mean? And so Black History Month was born from the need to actually educate Black people about their own history, as well as take pride in it, as well as educate the rest of the country. Since even today in 2021, we still have this abysmal record of educating people on who Black people are in this country and what we stand for and how we got here and the importance that we've inflicted, the important things that we've done throughout society since the beginning of time and all these things. Christopher Columbus didn't discover America. Stop saying it. It's a lie. It's just, but that's what people literally kids are being taught that today.
Yeah, it's the whole Christopher Columbus thing. To me, goes to like the World Series. Like, all right, the MLB, we won the World Series. No, you won in America, not the world.
Yeah.
I don't think the world signed up for
Yeah.
baseball, right? And
Yeah.
Christopher Columbus discovered it for like Europeans. Like, obviously other parts of the world didn't have like that same relationship. People who were indigenous discovered it many years earlier when they crossed the pathway between Russia and Alaska. And so
Absolutely.
and that's just like, these are things that are obvious to handle. Just sort of like talking about what that history is, because history, different people have different relationships with history. And obviously we created Black History Month because Black people didn't know their history. And that was the thing that I was just reading on. There was a massive demoralization for Black people in the 50s, 60s, and stuff like that about what they could do. There's like, you see these videos of Martin Luther King and all these people marching. But like, you gotta remember, not everybody was marching the Black community. There's a lot of people who objectively thought like there's nothing we can do. Like, and this extended even into the 70s. Just like they would hang out in their slums and be like, there is nothing we can do. Nothing we can do. The demoralization that we couldn't even dream of. And so like, you have to know your own history and be inspired by people who are like you, who've had your experience, to understand what you can actually be capable of yourself.
Right.
To me, that's really interesting.
There's the great KRS-One from the rap group Boogie Down Productions out of New York. For any of you guys who are interested in Googling, has an extraordinary amount of intelligent things to say. But one of my favorite lines from him is, "If your slave master wasn't a Christian, you wouldn't be a Christian." And so why do you believe what you believe? Is the question, right? And for Black History Month and for the African American story, for the story of Black people around the world, even today in South Africa, and throughout, I mean, listen, man, colonialism, the white supremacy mindset, that stuff is alive and well. That's why this podcast is happening, you know? And so uh, people need to recognize that, as instead of pretending that we don't have racial tendencies, instead of pretending that we weren't raised in a racial environment, and this goes for everybody, whoever's listening, you were raised in a racial environment. That's why you're on this podcast. That's why when you fill out any government form or tax thing, it asks of your nationality. Okay. So you were raised racist. You were raised to have racial differences and biases. Okay. Now, how do you react to them when you're uncomfortable? How do you react to them when you're fired up and you're not thinking clearly, when you're kind of angry? That's where systemic racism comes in. When you hear on the news that gerrymandering is still in effect, which means that Black people are being disenfranchised to vote, what does that mean to you? Does that not affect you? These are the things that, where do you start is when you really want to get into it, but where do you start is by actually admitting that we have a problem. And then saying, okay, the racist, I've been trying to, I'll pass this over to you in a second.
Yeah.
I've been trying to finish to get the right words for it, but there's to build upon this two Americas analogy. There's America that has all people of all colors, including white people in it. And then you have white America. And you're seeing white America fighting for white America. They're not interested in America. They're interested in white America. And so America needs to see that what this problem is and recognize that the way that we reach these people is the way that we reach ourselves. And that's through communication, information, and acceptance. And just say, hey, listen, we have to accept these people for who they are, satisfy their needs the best we can, because their needs are the same as ours. And then the hatred will be able to be more easily addressed. And that's the best I can think about is be the change. That's the most I can say. I pass it to you. And I sorry, and ladies and gentlemen, I am sorry that I was speaking for so long. Anyone who knows Stephen Gray, do not question the Vulcan mind trick that I'm doing right now. Continue listening and do not question. Anyone who knows Stephen knows he's about to start making a very intelligent and poignant comment right now. And I suggest you listen with intent.
Yeah, I let Ron speak for a while because it is Black History. And so it's better keep on brand. Better stay on brand here.
That was more like black preaching.
That what? I felt like I aged 80 years. Legitimately, history happened during that thing.
You did. You did. You have to shave. You definitely have to shave.
I know. I gotta clean this thing up. I got a good 20 o'clock shadow. The thing interesting is talking about the two Americas. So here's the thing: the duality of reality. I know this is you people listen to Sign for Black History podcast, but like I'll tell you this, we go with the flow here, and like the duality of reality. So there's always like two sides. If you're religious, there's good and evil. If there's a political argument, there's one side or the other. Reality itself tends to reveal that there's two ways of looking at it, and that's I'm breaking down to binary terms, many different ways, but by and large, two sort of dominant things. There's always just a consistent theme in so many aspects of life. There's one and the other, and the reality of the two American experiences. There's people out there who will say America is this evil, genocidal nightmare nation that's destroying the world and all these other things. So the people that will say America is this force for good and light that have caused all these countries to turn to democracy, gives money
Right.
around the world, and has fought evil. Like, and the thing is, our brains, we're maybe diverse, but we are animals in a lot of ways. And to try to make progress with a complex world is the major question. It's easy to ram forward if you believe it's good versus evil, you versus them. You could really start to plow through and like knock it in. But to create a society that works, you got to have the yin and the yang. You got to sort of see the systems that are broken, and then also you have to see what's good. Well, that's what we do with positive identity. We have to see the good that people like you have done. We honor Black history, and then we honor history for people who are Asian, for people who are white, Hispanic, Native, whatever, because we have to essentially accept the fact that there has to be, uh, we can't just have progress with a stick. There has to be a carrot too. There has to be a reason why we roll out of bed for each other. Because if we roll out of bed to get whacked, well,
Mm.
either we become less than human with each other, or people start whacking each other back, and it goes out of control. And so, like,
Right.
to me, Black History Month serves as a template for every racial group that we deal with in positive identity to sort of say, what is it to help understand yourself to take action? Because here's where the Black experience is expiring. I know there are people that wish in the Black community, and I'm gonna say some loaded comments. I know some Black people that wish they could go full 1776. That it wasn't just kumbaya, that they could just let her rip and fight back. And I would argue that the reality is that the culmination of the American experience was through how Black people gained their freedom. You can't shoot each other. You can't shoot your way out of the problem. That's not where human society goes. We're going away from that. And Black people are the model for how you mobilize, you take action, and you push forward through change that I know a lot of people hate some of the gradualness of it. And you're right. We got to make sure shit happens yesterday. But at the same time, too, we
Mm-hmm.
have to have a country that doesn't capsize because we
That's
just ran
exactly
through a
correct.
bunch of
Yeah.
walls and we didn't even think about what was going to happen. So
Mhm.
that's my thought.
No, I agree. I agree with you, and I think that listen. Once again, for those of you who haven't noticed, Stephen is a white male, a cisgendered male. I don't even know what that means, but apparently it's categorizing
Ron, you're
himself.
at that point. The millennials are using terms on you where it's like, shut up, kids.
Yeah, I'm a comedian, guys. Come listen. Let's just again. You bring up a really good point. Okay, I'm African American. I'm gay. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
finish that thought. And when I say by I don't even know what that means is because if we were able to get to a place where we just saw each other equally, those labels wouldn't matter except for those whom you were intimate with, you know, those differences. And so for me, as a comedian who listens to a lot of comedians struggle with identity, sexual orientation jokes and things like that. And for people who actually struggle with their own sexual orientation, which I know a lot, listen, all this comes down to is who can you love, and um, everybody should and could and I hope love somebody and is loved. And um, when your choices equal um, pain and suffering for others, maybe you have the wrong answer at this point. And for Black History Month, um, I think I would love for this to be a month of call to action.
Hmm.
I would love this to be a month of let us all now see. We now see America for what it is in 2021. We know what America is now, currently in real time. We have the picture in our hand. It just happened, right? We know what America is now. Let us all admit that that's what's actually in the picture. Let's admit what we all see, and then say, let's go about taking care of it. And the guiding principle is, do we all have the same opportunity? It's real simple. And if we don't, then, and you have a problem with that, then that's something we are all here to talk with you about and help you with, so you can get to the point that you can agree that everybody having the same equal opportunity is beneficial to you.
This country was one of the ideals is that we were all created equal, and what ends up happening is that people will sometimes get off the rails about that. We're not created equal just by the nature of race. Look at each other. But I think the ideal is that we create systems where, from the womb, you know, the playing field pretty much works for everyone, and that
Right.
ultimately good people succeed and bad people don't is what we're talking about. We're created equal. We can't, we can't make everyone be equal at the end of the day. We can't do, if one person's a monster, one person's not. We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna create an equal society for people who are terrible. But out of the womb, like going through, I feel like, the call to action, it's okay to say like America, and you'll find from me a lot of great things. We're a great country in so many ways, but there's a lot of
Absolutely.
terrible things. And like
Absolutely.
that's the duality of human nature.
Yeah.
I go outside and I'll help out a food shelter, but like I don't sell my car. If I sold my car to give money to people in Africa, I could save a ton of lives. How many
Yeah.
of us
Yeah.
could fully go in and save lives, but we don't? But we have to move forward anyways. We have to find those things that inspire us to pull us forward while pushing against those things that are inhibiting us to be our better nature.
Yep.
So
I
Ron, okay, could go on.
yeah. I again, I'm hopeful. I end this podcast as I began it, with the expression of hopefulness
Right.
that I think America is awake in a way that we will never turn. There is a segment of America that has been awakened that will no longer sleep. And I say to all my white brothers and sisters out there, who see the things that we are dealing with as gay and African Americans, and as Latino Americans and Asian Americans and Native Americans, that you are shocked whereby, we love you too. And we see you too. And it is extraordinarily important that you continue to voice to do what you've been doing, to stand up and be counted, and to fucking vote. The midterm elections, this coming midterm elections, is going to be one of the most pivotal and important midterm elections in a generation. I suggest you get ready for it.
All right. So what I'll do is this. Let's
That was really cheerful.
very very. I'll say this. There's a world where our life doesn't revolve around politics, where we hire these people and then we
Yeah.
go back to like doing what we need to do to improve society while they,
Right.
they'll govern, but hopefully they'll govern like, a parks and recreation head will govern. Where like, yeah, you see them
Yeah.
here and there and, but we are the ones in charge because we have the
Right.
economic power, we have the relationship with each other to make
Right.
those changes. And so, for you all, what we're doing at Positive Identity is that we want you to be able to vote every day. Ron's right about the midterms; they're coming up, but the decisions you make, the things you tweet about to people, the way you talk about people on Facebook, and so on and so forth, you have to ask yourself: are you destroying somebody, or are you trying to save them? Either save them from themselves or from something. You'd ask. Like one of the Christian ideals is love your neighbor as yourself. It always love means to always protect. And so, like, are you protecting people? Are you protecting yourself? It's okay to protect yourself. And that's the thing. We just, and you know this, we see what you post. And you got to ask yourself, are you protecting people here? Are you helping them? Or are you trying to destroy them? And like that to me is unacceptable.
There's to paraphrase this, just go to support what Stephen's saying, to paraphrase something that I can't remember where it comes from, but I heard it from a very wise man, so I'll just paraphrase it, and it goes: the wise man smiles and says nothing. If you have nothing good to say. If you feel this person is an idiot, if all the things that you believe is true, then smile and say nothing. And then take action to improve the community. Oh, see that? I like that ending much better than my last one. My last one was like kind of dour.
I
Like
like
people were
this
like, "Oh
ending
my
too.
god!"
I
Like they were ready.
think
They're people were like ready to go run, get the guns. They were like, "I'm going to QAnon, fuck positive identity," because it's like it's kind of, you know what I mean. And they come here for Stephen, who is going to be meticulous with facts and professionalism, 5 o'clock shadows, and hilarious expressions when I say things ridiculous. And then they come to me for saying things ridiculous. And
no,
like
no, Ron,
butterscotch,
you're the
like
comedian.
butterscotch,
When you know
like
how the
butterscotch
comedian
nipples.
when the
No,
comedian's doing like a whole like they're doing their jokes and then all of a sudden
no,
like they bring it down a gear and then all of a
yeah,
sudden it's just like they're putting it out there. That's you. You're the guy. You're making
yeah.
your
And then they
joke.
say something stupid like, butterscotch nipple licks.
Oh yeah, they get canceled. Right, it's true. There's one way or the other. Either it's profound or they're like,
Well, you're done.
that's it. It's over. That's it.
You're done. You're
See you
fired.
in 4 years.
All right. Well,
All
Stephen,
right. Well, Ron,
I feel,
we're gonna have
I feel
podcasts. All
positive.
right. So for everyone who's listening, we have some great
Yeah.
podcast guests ahead of us that
Oh
we
my
can't
god.
wait for you to listen to.
Oh my god.
Yeah, people want to be in this podcast. Think about it. We're literally like, because here's the thing. What are you against positive race relations? It's a hostage situation. That's part of how we work this thing. No one wants to be.
Oh man.
Yeah. But seriously,
See, Stephen was an Italian grandmother in his previous lifetime. Did you feel the guilt just oozing through however you receive your podcast? Do you not want to call your mom right now after based off of what Stephen? I don't feel clean, but I accept it because it benefits all of us.
yeah, you know what? It's a dirty world out there, folks. You got to play to win. But Ron's going to show us how to play to win in these coming months because Ron's been talking about how we can take action. And Ron, I'm not going to put this on you. There's not going to be a quiz for the next podcast. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to spend Black History Month having guests and learning from Black history to see what Black people have done to take action. Because here's the thing, there's been some dire situations for a lot of Black organizers and people of thought leaders and stuff like that. Let's take a look at what they were seeing, what they're thinking about, and use that for all our other racial communities to take action as well.
Absolutely. And I'm going to continue to date as many white men as possible. So
yeah, on that note, Ron's doing his part. Are you doing your part to help bring together people of all racial communities in America? Folks, it was great to have you here on February 1st.
Awesome is that? I can't wait to listen to this.
2021.
That was hilarious.
Right, yeah, you and me are going to put this thing into like the top 10 podcasts just by combing through this and being like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
All right,
ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. See you next week.